Good day, everyone. This webinar is presented by Training Location, your DiSC provider. My name is Bill Harshman. I'm the president of Training Location, and I'll be hosting your session today. We are an authorized DiSC distributor for Wiley Publishing, as well as a channel partner with the Ken Blanchard companies. Thank you for your interest and for visiting our site. Our topic today is interaction between DiSC styles, that is steady with conscientious. This session is one in an ongoing series between and among the 4 DiSC styles, which include dominant, influence, steady, and conscientious. Before we begin, I want to review the cornerstone principles of DiSC. They're important to what we're about to go through. All 4 DiSC styles are equally valuable. Everyone is a unique blend of all 4 DiSC styles, and your unique style is also influenced by other factors such as life experiences, education, and maturity. I want to take a look at what I call the PACE and priority model. It's the essential tool for preliminary diagnosis, discussion, and understanding of the DiSC styles as they and their relationship to each other. I want to be clear and say it's not a diagnosis for a person, it's to detect the style. Now, the vertical dimension is what I call PACE, and we see the descriptors at the top and the bottom of that PACE continuum. It is our outward activity level. The horizontal dimension represents what I call priority, and we see those descriptors at the left and the right of that priority continuum. Now, some refer to this horizontal dimension as your agreeableness quotient. This means those who are agreeable place a higher priority on cooperation and social harmony, and those who are less agreeable show less priority or concern for cooperation and social harmony. So that's a little background into the 2 dimensions and why they exist. It is the interaction between these 2 continua which forms the 4 quadrants of the DiSC. As we look at this simple grid, we can begin to make out the unique pace and priority pairings into each quadrant as follows. Fast-paced and outspoken with a questioning and skeptical priority is a D for dominant. Fast-paced and outspoken with an accepting and warm priority describes an I or influence. Cautious and reflective and an accepting and warm priority describes an S or steady. And cautious and reflective pace with a questioning and skeptical priority describes a C or conscientious. Now, this simple model helps point out which styles either share pace or priority or neither with another style. For example, the D and the I each have a spot somewhere on the top half of that pace continuum. The I and the S each have a spot somewhere on the right half of the priority continuum. The C and the S each have a spot somewhere on the bottom half of the pace continuum, and the C and the D each have a spot somewhere on the left half of the priority continuum. Now, as you can also see, there are a couple styles which are dissimilar, and that is to say they don't share pace or priority. Excuse me, specifically, those are the D and the S style. And as you can probably imagine, the other pair is the C and the I style. Today, so again, they just don't share either pace or priority. The reason I bring this up is because this might require what I call stretching to get along with those different styles. And we'll talk more about that. It's kind of like there are times when a parent needs to stretch to be more effective stretch to be more directive, and times when they need to stretch to be more supportive to facilitate interaction. The same is true with differing styles of DiSC. Today, we'll be discussing the interaction between the S and the C styles. Remember, we always consider both pace and priority to help us begin to understand a style. Now, as shown previously, the S style and the C style share a cautious and reflective pace. We just learned that. However, they differ in their priority. The S has an accepting and warm priority, and the C has a questioning and skeptical priority. So we see where they're similar and we see where they're different. Let's look further. When we combine the S's, pace and priority, excuse me, we can see refined descriptors such as even-tempered, accommodating, patient, humble, tactful. So you start to get a feel for that style. Now, the S style tends to be about providing support, maintaining stability, and encouraging collaboration. If they had a motto, it would be, let's do it together. Now, when we combine the C's, pace and priority, we see that refined list of descriptors such as precise, analytical, systematic, reserved, and quiet. Now, the C style is about ensuring accuracy, maintaining stability, challenging assumptions. If they had a motto, it would be do it right. So you can see the difference between the two styles right away. Now, what might help us understand the previous descriptors is to dive a little bit and see what drives these two styles. Wiley research indicates the following core theme or themes for the respective styles. This is where we can see the difference in their priority or degree of agreeableness really surface. Let's look at the core need of the S. It's simple. It's harmony. They have a need for harmony. They need to know that things are running smoothly and evenly and no looming tension or pressure or danger is on the horizon. Now, they want to know that there is harmony in both their relationships and their tasks. I'm going to take it back. Remember, the S is all about support, stability, and cooperation. Now, this need for harmony can result in even a bias to give other people benefit of the doubt, maybe to the S's detriment, and it can also result in a powerful desire to avoid conflict and the things that create that conflict. So the S's fears include loss of stability, change, especially rapid change, loss of harmony, and offending others. Now, to understand the C, we first need to understand that people with this style have a strong instinct to analyze. They're analytical people. And this analytical theme is driven by three needs. They have a strong need for safety and security. They need to have things in their life be stable and reduce unknowns and identify dangers and threats, a place where all the rules are known. The second need is these people have a strong need to be beyond reproach, as if they said, my actions are so justifiable that I can't be criticized. They don't want to be the one to blame or be responsible for a screw up. And they'll spend time and energy avoiding that very position. And the third is a strong need to, or for, to have control. Social interactions are tough because they're so unpredictable. So a C might say, I'm just going to pull inward a little bit and control what I say. The fears of a C include criticism, slipshod methods, and, as we said, being wrong. Now, one can see now if an S is interacting with a C, you can imagine how, let's say, the S's accepting and warm nature and need for harmony, coupled with the S's fear of change and loss of stability, meets up with the C's questioning and skeptical nature and need for analysis through challenging assumptions and doing it right. This can present a challenge for the unaware. At a minimum, there's a need for stretching from one or both parties. That's a lot in one sentence, but we'll learn more about that in the next couple of slides. So we examined the behavioral patterns and tendencies, preferences and needs, and even the fears of the two styles. So let's stay with the S as our example style to get through the next portion. I want you to pause here and dive a little deeper with me and broader into what further defines a style. Now, in the past, we defined our style in terms of where it fell in the four-quadrant DiSC model, as pictured in the upper right-hand corner. You're all familiar with that. Now, that's still true. We know now that there is much more to style identification and that there are at least two ways in which similar styles may differ. In order to properly explain this, I'm going to introduce you to the everything DiSC model, which is now on your screen. Wiley research has shown us that there are more like 12 segments or regions, if you will. I always want to say slices of pie within the four-quadrant structure. You can easily see that when a primary style sits closer to a neighboring style, it tends to take on some of the neighboring style's characteristics, as you can imagine. So take a look at the SI where the arrow's pointing and the SC styles within the S quadrant. We call these blended styles. They occur through adaptive testing, and which is more precise and ensures consistency. The style dot on your disc is unique to you and is in a very specific position. All right, enough technology and back to understanding you. Let's look at two ways, for example, how the S can differ. One is inclination, and I'll explain these. Inclination, I think of as a degree of a style, shows how naturally inclined a person is to encompass the characteristics of their disc style. The other aspect, the second aspect, is proximity. And you can imagine it's pretty simple. It's placement. It's placement to the neighboring style quadrant. Let's first look at inclination using a primary S style in our example. So a dot at the outside of the circle indicates a strong, and I'll use that term again, strong inclination, which means you have a strong primary S style. This means the descriptions about your S style probably resonate with you, and even other people can probably recognize those qualities in you too. A person who has a dot closer to the outside means they'll have to expend more energy to stretch to behaviors outside their style. A dot in the middle of the quadrant or region indicates a moderate inclination, which means you have a less than strong style, however, still a primary S. Now, the inclination changed from the strong position. However, the proximity changed as well. You can see how your dot moved closer to both the I and the C quadrant by moving in a little bit. In this case, the style still resonates with you, though perhaps not as much. However, it usually indicates more of a willingness and ability to stretch and adapt to meet other styles than does a dot on the outer edge of the circle. Now, a dot, sorry, it's so small there, near the inside of the region, near the center of the circle, indicates a slight inclination to encompass characteristics of their disc style while still considered their primary S style. That is still an S, just like the outer S is an S. It's a difference in their inclination. Now, just before the inclination changed, and the proximity moved even closer to both the I and the C quadrant. So you might, this style, this slight S, might also find it even easier to stretch and adapt to other styles than does a dot in the middle or the outer edge of the circle. Now, second to our understanding is proximity or placement to neighboring styles. In this example, I'm only looking at proximity and not inclination, just to make this point. In our example, there can exist three styles of S within the S quadrant, as you see there. Specifically, it contains an SI, an S, and an SC style. Let's remember the S styles still share some degree of cautious and reflective pace and an accepting and warm priority. Let's look at the subtle differences which make them unique. The SI is a blended style, as we said. They value collaboration and like to involve others in decision making. Those with the SI blended style focus on building team spirit and are less concerned with individual accomplishment. They're supportive and place a high importance on the needs of others, and their accommodating nature allows them to set aside their own opinions and needs in order to help others. Now, an S style puts a high priority on providing support, being a good listener, and are seen as patient and accommodating, making sure others feel included and accepted. They focus on maintaining predictable, orderly environment, and their cautious, methodical pace avoids rapid change whenever possible. Now, the SC style, again, a blended style, is prioritized on stability, again, closer to that C quadrant, focus on stability and consistent outcomes. Their cautious nature prefers minimal surprises, and they're not overly emotional when pushed. Their focus on accuracy can appear as fairly analytical at times. So I hope you can see how the three styles in the S quadrant differ enough to be defined that way. Let me remind you of a cornerstone principle. Your style is also influenced by factors such as life experiences, education, and maturity. This helps further explain how two S's can be similar and from the same disc quadrant, but different enough to require some degree of stretching or flex to meet the other similar style. I understand this is new information for many of you. This is the Everything Disc model from Wiley Publishing. And you can contact me at the end of the webinar if you like, info@training location, and I'll be happy to talk more about it with you. I felt that little sidebar was necessary before we continue. I like to provide a so what or why care about blended styles to help provide context for my learners. And by the way, what I'm presenting here in this slide applies to all 4 quadrants of the model. Suppose we find the results of 2 employees that are SI and CD respectively. So S and C, their primary style is S and C respectively, but they're a blended style. Let's focus on that SI-CD interaction. This SI style has a strong inclination. You can see it there on the slide. It is toward the outer edge of the circle while having a clearly close proximity to the I quadrant. In a similar fashion, the CD has a slight inclination toward the center of the circle while having a clearly close proximity to the D quadrant. Let's also see what the pace and priority model looks like when overlaid on our everything DiSC model. This helps to reinforce what we're learning. Our CD is fairly balanced on the priority continuum, the horizontal one, as well as fairly balanced on its pace continuum. In fact, the CD is really fairly centered and balanced in the overall model. However, the SI is extremely far out on its priority continuum. However, similar to the CD, it's fairly balanced on the vertical pace continuum. In fact, both of these blended styles are fairly close to each other as far as pace is concerned on the vertical axis. Here's our model again to just help remind you where the S and the C styles fit into our grid. Today we discussed 2 individuals from different quadrants, don't share any priority. However, they aren't that far apart when it comes to pace. My point is lumping individuals into a style box can really overlook what's behind the style and what's inside that person. I encourage you to share this webinar, and with a different topic every week, many of my customers and clients are using these webinars as learning aids and boosters to help grow the DiSC culture inside their organization. Time for some DiSC humor. The S gets in the car and says, "Hop on in, partner. I hope the AC is adjusted properly for you. There are controls on your side if you'd like to change it. Do you have what you need? I think I packed what you requested, but don't worry. If you think of something, we can stop and I'll grab it. No problem at all. Oh, and I memorized our route. I hope there are no roadblocks or detours ahead that could change that. I just want everything to go smoothly and for us to have a good time." The C gets in the car and says, without a greeting, "I brought the map, hard copy and digital. Do you have a full tank? If you tell me what kind of miles per gallon you get, I can calculate our range and where we should stop for gas. Based on my estimation, we should arrive in about 3 hours, 17 minutes. And oh, I noticed your car needs washing. Has it been serviced lately?" Hope you enjoy that. I hope the information helps address the challenges faced by your organization, whether your needs are employee engagement, orientation, onboarding, conflict management, team building, or just simply communication. DiSC is the research-based, proven leading training solution. It's impacted more than 8 million learners in over 130,000 organizations and through 14 languages in over 70 countries worldwide. This provides a quick, intuitive way to understand yourself and the needs and priorities of the people around you. And DiSC delivers immediate and lasting impact on the performance of people and the culture of organizations. And as always, my rule is the key to effectiveness through DiSC is understanding your and other styles, then using that knowledge for improved interaction. Thank you for joining us today. Here's our contact info. Meanwhile, good luck with the DiSC. And before you go, I want to extend a resource to you and a request. If you'd like to have a complimentary live webinar introducing DiSC to your team or organization, use the email shown, info@training location, and let me know. Be sure and check out our other blogs at our website, traininglocation.com. And before you close your screen, we always appreciate your like, your share, your download, and of course, for future learning videos, please subscribe and receive your weekly bell alert for a new learning video. Thank you and goodbye till next time.